Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. What I'd like to do, just because we want to give input to the rest of the committee, I'm going to take a picture of you guys and show how many of you are so thrilled with your local roads. Should we
all frown?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Very, very good.
Well, that means you're thrilled. You're smiling.
Hey, troublemakers down there. Thank you. All right. My name is Christopher D. Simone, and this young man here is Reggie Grout, and we are Allie's appointees to the Transportation Advisory Committee for Pima County. Now, Reggie is much classier than me. I have a soccer training that I have to do after this, so that's why I didn't wear my tux and tails for you kids. I'm sorry. So I know you're disappointed. Okay. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about part of it will be how did we get here, because that's a big question that always comes up in Q&A with folks. But also what's actually going to happen here. How is this little extra tax, how is it generated? How is it going to be distributed, right? Then is the idea of how many bad roads, fair roads, good roads. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how the money is being distributed to the jurisdictions. And then we're going to talk about the decisions as a committee that we have to make. Okay? Then at the end, this is what happened at the first one last week. We had Q&A, and there were some questions, and then of course a lot of people inputting about they haven't touched my road in 38 years. So don't feel lonely if you say that. Now we do have a couple of good Pima County experts here today with us. So if you ask tech questions, Dave Cummings is here. I got his name right. I've been calling him Hoover on the radio for the last 6 days. So Dave Cummings from the transportation. He's one of those transportation hardcore Jedis on all the nuts and bolts. And then Carmine DeBonis, who is DeBonis, I said that right? He is a county deputy administrator in charge of public works, correct? So Carmine's going to do a little bit more of maybe a little more bigger picture stuff, and then during Q&A, him and I do competing versions of reality, which is always fun. So he does it with a good spirit, and I appreciate that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask questions. I mean, there'll be Q&A at the end, but if there's some point you really want that's like a real tech question, raise your hand and we'll get it going. So just so you know who I am, basically I've lived in Pima County since '88. Moved here from New York. I'm a little bit of a wallflower. And I have a company called Proven Partners where I do business therapy and marketing, do a lot of stuff in the tourism restaurant business. And I also have done work with Grayline Tours, which is a 100-year-old family-owned and operated local transportation company that does tours, motor coaches, we do tractor trailer, school buses. So I've learned a lot about what they have to deal with in roads in this world over the last 10 years. Reggie, I'm going to let him introduce himself. I'm going to have Reggie come up and start us off on the presentation a little bit. This is Reggie Grout. Be kind to him, okay? He's a good man.
I also heard you on the radio.
Oh, that's true. I do a show called Wake Up Tucson in the morning, 5 days a week, 6 to 9, but it's not about me. So,
welcome everybody. My name is Reggie Grout, and my wife and I have lived here in the northwest area of Pima County for just about 30 years now. We moved out here in 1988. I'm retired FedEx, so for 20-some years I've been driving the streets between the city of Tucson and the county and all over, so pretty familiar with the roads. One thing I am not is I'm not a politician. I have never been in government before or anything like that. I pride myself in just being a homeowner and a citizen. So I have volunteered to be here, as Chris has, and I assure you we're not here because of some lucrative compensation agreement. The pay on this job is zero. We don't get paid. So it's all volunteer, but they did give us lunch. They gave us lunch the other day.
I just want to say I do not eat government-sponsored lunches. I did bring my own. So just for the taxpayers. I'm hardcore that way. Went to Rincon Market and brought a roast beef sandwich. But anyway,
There you go.
keep going.
I had one of the lunches, and like I said,
forgive you.
they gave us lunches. Well, that's not exactly right. They got the lunches, and they paid for them with tax dollars. So you guys provided lunch with the
Thank
lunches.
you.
So I say thank you for lunch. So if we get started, the Transportation Advisory Committee was created through Pima County, and basically how we got here, what we started, it started with some ideas on Board of Supervisors, mainly to Chuck Huckleberry, who's the county administrator, and he thought about having this road tax that could be used for quote, local roads, not for the connector roads and that. And these were some of the thoughts that had come through on that they would use, these revenues would be used for local roads, and they all had to be used for local roads. And then initially it was going to be that the supervisors were going to develop these road repair priorities and things like that. And then they came up with the idea of having an advisory board for the entire county. So that was the plan that passed the Board of Supervisors, was to create this Pima County Transportation Advisory Committee. And we're charged with a bunch of stuff. So we can kind of go over that. But basically there's 2 representatives from each of the 5 districts, and that makes it 10 of us. And there's 3 representatives who were appointed by Mr. Huckleberry, and those are people who have transportation expertise. So unlike myself, those people have transportation expertise. I've driven, that's my expertise. So that, one of the things that we did want to note was that originally when it was planned and the supervisors were going to have control over how the roads that were going to be fixed. Well, now that's gone to this Transportation Advisory Committee. In terms of an advisory, though, it's not that whatever they decide is going to be locked in stone. That will be determined by our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors will make the determination. But that'll come into question a little bit later as we go on.
Hey Reggie, I got one. Can you go back to that real quick?
Yes.
So the one thing about that, about the makeup that's interesting, of course, it's great that Chuck has 3 representatives that have transportation, but they also basically have, basically when we vote on things, they have equal voting power to someone who's appointed by an elected official. And with 3, he actually has 1.5 times that of an elected official. So I feel, I'm not too big a fan that the employee has, one employee has better voting power than 1 elected official. So that's just my snarky 2 cents that not a big fan of that. Sorry, Reggie.
Okay, anytime. So the tax that was passed was a 25 cents per $100 valuation. So it was also split. So the first 11 cents of that tax, the first 11 cents is fiscally neutral. That was offset by other taxes that were reduced, so you don't see an increase. The second part, by the way, I've never used a PowerPoint. So, see if I get the right button here. The 14 cents, that has yet to be determined as to how it will be divided up. So the total that we expect on the first year is the $19,526,526. That's what's expected to be the total funds of the tax increase. So the first part is the $8,591,000, which is fiscally neutral, and the second part is the $10,934,000 from the 14 cent increase. So it was basically divided up like this. Of the 11 cents, the $4,987,980 went to cities and towns. So the incorporated areas in the county are going to divide up that amount of money right there. The rest, the $3,603,000, is left for the unincorporated portions of Pima County. And then that has to be divided among the districts. And Mr. Huckleberry did the math on this part here and divided it all out. That's how we know that this is the answer. This is how it's being divided. And basically it's through the division of the different municipalities based on their tax revenue. The 14 cents minus the $600,000 debt insurance and interest, will result in the $10,334,000. And this number is based on the same number as that one, based on the same percentages. So the cities and towns would be getting that same amount of money as in proportion as on this side. And the amount left over would be for the unincorporated Pima County. Now, the methodology behind all this was to, like I said, identify the baseline jurisdictions, the Oro Valley, Marana, Taurida, Tucson City, and South Tucson, and divide that up according to the assessed valuation of the properties. Then the next portion was to identify the lane miles in the supervisory districts. So that's how they came with the next. Well, this is the jurisdictions based on their percentages of valuation. So just for example, Oro Valley, 7.588%.
Reggie.
And that's what they got. Yes.
You've got a handout there, that is the sheet, let me see the sheet. If
Yeah.
you want, you can follow Reggie on the steps 1, 2, 3, 4. They're in the handout that is included in the packet of material. So you can see the numbers better.
So unincorporated Pima County, which is most of our roads, represented 41.944%. So the rest of these percentages are going to these municipalities. So again, the system was done between the districts based on the lane miles of the district. And then the population that they used was in order to say that, like Marana may have areas that are in District 1 and may have areas that are in District 3. So they used population to determine how much of Marana's money was going to go into the District 1 section and how much would go into the District 3 section. So that's what they used population for. And then they integrated those, and that's how they came up with the, well, this is the lane miles that you can see in the county by district. So this is what we used, what the county used to come up with the percentages for each of the districts based on lane miles. So after determining the revenue that was generated for the unincorporated areas, the next step was to determine the property road revenue allocation for the incorporated areas, which is the cities and towns, which they did by population. And the analysis was pretty complex. I know we talked about in our meetings how this was come about. So it was really a complex way of doing things because there didn't seem to be any real straightforward way to come up with this. But it was designed in order to have tax equity among the cities and towns so that it would be representative of the evaluations of the properties in the cities and towns. And this was the final representation of you see the 19,526,000 there, based on, like I said, Marana had areas in District 1 and in District 3. So this was the entire piece of the pie, so to speak. That's the whole thing for year 1. So to talk about road ratings for a little while, these numbers represent good, fair, poor, and failed roads. And we came up with this basically because we said the very good roads, which is another category, and the unrated roads, we weren't going to try and assign repair dollars for. obviously you're not going to want to take your money and put it on trying to do something with very good roads. So this represents just these categories: good, fair, poor, and fail. And you can see for the unincorporated total what those numbers are. And for example, 57% of the total of the unincorporated roads, 582 miles, are rated in poor condition. So if you use these two booklets like we have in the back, if you open up, this one has the maps in it, and if you look at the colors, red means failed and orange means poor. So the red and the orange are the worst roads in the districts. So you can get an idea. Also, you can use, if you think your road is poor, this booklet breaks down the roads according and lumps them according to condition. So all the poor roads are together. So if you look under poor and you don't find your road, try looking under failed. Maybe it's failed. So you can get your ratings on these. And these are available online. You can go to pima.gov and go to transportation and click down to the Transportation Advisory Committee, and you can click on there and you have access to both of these. And the numbers on the totals of these are in there also. So looking at District 1, what we've been trying to look at is we looked at poor roads. 64% of our roads in District 1 were rated as poor, and 18 were rated as failed. I have to live on one of the failed roads. I don't know what they're like. So one of the things that we've talked about is the methodology of how we're going to try and decide what roads to fix and what roads to maintain. And most of us, from talking to different people, feel like the feedback that I have gotten has been primarily that we need to work on the poor and failed roads. We need to repair the roads that are really in bad condition. So when you total up the poor and failed roads, there's 794 in miles of poor and failed roads in unincorporated county. And District 1, our district, has 341 of those miles. So 43% of all the poor and failed roads in the county are right here in District 1. So when you talk about costs, pavement treatment costs, now these can vary, so these numbers are rule of thumb. But if you were to try and maintain or preserve your good and fair roads, you can do them for $15,000 to $53,000 per mile. Chip sealing will be more expensive. It's going to go up to $7,400,000 per mile.
Reggie,
Yes.
how frequently would those 15 to 53,000 expenditures have to be spent to maintain roads in good condition? How many years in between?
From what we heard, we just had a presentation from Oro Valley, and from what I've read, it's about 3 to 5 years that those treatments would go. Does that sound like a reasonable?
Oro Valley does 5 years. Reality, 8 years is a good average.
Okay.
But we're nowhere near that.
Yeah. But yeah, once you have your roads in good condition, like Oro Valley does, they do them every 5 years. So they run through the cycle.
Is it possible to spend a little more money and get the roads to last longer, so you don't have to do that 3 to 5 year cycle?
Are you looking for more money?
Well, no,
What you're saying is there a product way
Are there
to make
products
a better road,
that will make
so that better road will last
something
longer?
that would work, 8 to 10 years for another couple of $1,000s per mile. Is that out there?
David?
The short answer is there's always the right treatment at the right time, depending on your condition. And yes, there are better treatments, but there's nothing that's like an incremental where you pay just a little bit more and get a lot more bang for the buck. It's always proportional. A seal coat will last you a certain amount. You have new pavements. Starting with new, if you apply more frequently early on, it'll make them last longer in the long run. But there's no magic product that's gonna work so much better for a smaller amount of money.
Excuse me. I was under the impression that if the rating was poor, that you had to mill and overlay or schedule the reconstruction, that these treatments such as chip seals and cape seals and all these other treatments are not going to do aren't going to give us what we need.
Well, it depends, if I can, Reggie. What happens is anything rated 4 or below really requires a reconstruction.
Hey, Dave.
That means it's too cracked up.
Explain the Pazer level, because when you said 4.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We do have a rating system that goes from 0 to 10. 10 being brand new capital improvement project, 1 being functional but failed, nothing left but potholes and cracks. A 4 is something that you'll see that is fairly cracked up, where you have what we call tinted joints, where joints end up over time getting filled with material, they bounce up like that, and your car bounces. Really nothing to do with that other than tear it out and fix it. That's a 4 or less. The way the ratings work is 0 to 3 is rated failed. 4s and 5s are rated poors. However, there's about half the poors that can be salvaged with like a seal coat. Half the 4s will have to be reconstructed. We have those numbers. It's not on the graphic there, but we have the numbers of miles of each different category, each different number condition. So we know which ones can't be fixed, which ones have to be reconstructed.
When you do the number 4 with the seal coat?
We won't do a number 4 with the seal coat.
Well, that's what you just said.
No, we do a number 5 with the seal coat.
Okay,
number
well,
4 or
when you
below.
do that, how long does that last?
About 8 to 10 years. The seal coat, yes.
So what is a seal coat? What is
Usually it's chip seal with gravel and oil.
Young man in the corner.
Question, is the asphalt that's mixed in with the ground up rubber tires, does that last longer? I know it's more expensive, but it lets.
No, in fact, there's 2 types of rubberized asphalt. And there's one that's a chrome rubber that's mixed at the plant. And if you look around town, look at North Lock and Yada, you'll see areas, parts of Orange Grove, where that material is actually raveled out prematurely. It shouldn't have done that. And the problem is with the chrome rubber. There's a rubberized product called terminal blended asphalt, which is much better, which we use now. However, I don't think that we're talking about that in this case because these are all local streets. That only applies to major arterials.
But is that a higher quality asphalt?
Yes.
Would that essentially answer that guy's question?
Well, if you were looking at that for a major street, yes, that is something you get more flexibility on. I'm not sure if it's not proportional. If it costs 40% more, it probably lasts 40% longer. You're not going to get 100% difference in
Thank you.
longevity.
Yes, ma'am.
Even though it's residential streets, our area has garbage trucks 5 days a week, plus school bus, plus recycle trucks separately. It's not just cars. So do they fix the road considering the truck use?
Well, most of these subdivisions were designed under the old subdivision standards, which don't last. Carmine can tell you that they do have new subdivision standards for new subdivisions. They do include bigger sections, 4 cul-de-sacs for that reason. And anything that gets reconstructed will be reconstructed to the better standard.
In the old subdivisions too?
Yes.
Or older than?
Yeah, no, if you come in and do a reconstruction on an old subdivision, it's going to be constructed to the new standard.
All right. Thank you.
All right, any other technical questions for Dave while we got him up?
I have a quick question for Dave. There's a street called Leonardo da Vinci runs between Einor and Northbrook, which is not a major street. And here within the last year, that street was not, as far as I was concerned, looking at our streets in our neighborhood, was not in poor condition and was completely repaved.
I can tell you, it wasn't the last year, it's been many years, because I remember that.
Well, my son's only lived there so long, and it's been.
Well, I could give you the exact date, but I'll be happy to look it up. I can tell you that prior to this property tax enhancement, every year's pavement preservation was done ad hoc at the direction of board members, at the direction of Mr. Huckleberry. So all those choices were made on a year-by-year basis, depending on the situation, to get certain criteria every year. If somebody said, I want to do nothing but subdivisions, we picked the subdivisions. And that was one that I remember was, the intention is to be great to do those and continue on throughout the whole county, year to year. But we
Yes,
haven't
ma'am.
had that.
I have one road south of Oro Valley is the incorporated area, just east of Ina. And my road is like literally falling off the edges down into the wash. Some areas the washes are above the road. It's undermining our driveways every year. Huge potholes, cracks. They just keep coming and piles of asphalt all over. And it's sand. 1 block north in Oro Valley, the road's beautiful. The same subdivision. So I guess what I'm wanting to know, do they use the same road crews? I mean, it just seems like Oro Valley is more successful.
They're a different agency, they have different criteria than we
And
do.
Tucson,
Resources.
you know,
Trust me, we'll get to your answer before this show's over. So trust me, I'll answer that. John, tech question?
One final question.
Yes.
On some of the major roads, like La Cañada and La Cholla, that have been recently rebuilt and all like that, it seems like they're out there treating them now.
That's correct.
Aren't these roads supposed to last a little bit longer?
Yep, that's the same issue we have with that gentleman's question. That crumb rubber asphalt has failed prematurely in many areas, not just the county, but
That was the problem.
city also. That's the problem.
Okay.
You will have noticed we've gone out and spent a couple $100,000 between La Cañada and Orange Grove just recently redoing those intersections. What happens is when you have crossing traffic with that crumb rubber, you just peels it right out. And so that's a great product if you're doing nothing but a parkway with no crossing traffic.
when you look at the conditions of these roads, when you evaluate how they're affecting other structures, because all our water lines are being unearthed, all the runoff from the road, and the water meters are down in the washes.
No, the evaluation of the roads is strictly a road surface issue.
That road isn't being maintained, it's damaging.
That's not a factor in the rates.
Thank you, David.
Okay, so getting back to the costs here, we're talking for poor and fail roads between $211,000 and $246,000 per mile. Now, the funding that we talked about, if we use the scenario that they used on the first portion of the funding, on the second portion, we could probably expect District 1 to come up with about $2,842,000 for this year. So this tax is planned for a 5-year tax. Only the first year has been approved by the Board of Supervisors, so the next years will have to be approved as they go along. But that's probably about what we could expect if things go the same way for both portions. So out of that $2,842,000, if you use that on poor roads at $211,000 per mile, we get about 13.5 miles. And for failed roads, we could probably get 11.5 miles. And then if you combine the two and did half and half, you'd be talking somewhere around 12.5 miles. So this first year, in terms of how many actual, Carmine, is this lane miles?
Those are center line miles.
Those are center lines.
Basically 2 lanes. on multiple
Okay, so
roads.
this is actual center line miles.
Yes.
So that would be a 12.5 mile stretch of roadway.
Yeah, up to 30 feet wide, 12 miles long.
Okay. So that's what we're looking at in terms of 1 year in terms of funding. And you saw how many miles of roads we had. So this is not a big fix for all the roads, even over the 5 years. This is just one portion of it.
So this is the point in time where no matter how pissed you are at your road, you should be more pissed, okay? Because here, we're managing expectations is what we're doing with this, okay? So I keep saying on the show, I keep saying in other things, a lot of bread, not a lot of butter. And that's going to be the overriding theme of all of this. is a lot of you who have, at the first meeting, we have people who have not had their roads touched in 35 years. And I said, be prepared to have it possibly not touched for another few years.
And is this July, is this from July to June, this first 211,000 or whatever?
You mean when are they going to get this, when will they start doing work?
Is this money, yes,
Is this
allocated?
next spring?
Yeah, it'd be started in the springtime.
Yeah. So by the time we go through the process, you don't want to do it in the winter. So, next spring, so get your Easter egg done. Yes.
Question, how do we get here? I mean,
I'll-
I guess
I'll-
that's irrelevant at this point.
Funny guy. We're gonna get to that, I promise. So, hold that thought.
But I want to, can I ask you, how do you determine what area you're gonna work in
We're gonna get to that too, I promise.
That's what I was just
All
going
right.
to get to now. What this Pima County Transportation Advisory Board has been charged with doing is to determine certain things. One of those things is the apportionment of the revenue. The first 11 cents of the 25 has already been approved by the Board of Supervisors, so that's already been determined. The second, the 14 cents, has not been determined yet. So this committee can make recommendations on how that will be divided up. Also, the methodology, whether or not we want to concentrate the monies that are available on pavement preservation, which is you can get a lot more than phrase goes around, bang for your buck on those kind of things, or are we talking about pavement repair? And I just, as I said before, for my own purposes, all the people that I have talked to so far in my district have said they want pavement repair. So that may be true for our district, but it may not be true for other districts. So we also get into the question then, the decision-making, is the decision-making going to be on the methodology for the whole district, such that everyone in the district follows this methodology? Or can we get to a point where we say, let the districts determine what their methodology is? We have many, many more poor and failed roads than some of the other districts. So maybe some of the other districts would like to say, we don't have that many poor and failed. Most of ours are good to fair. So we want to make sure we preserve those good to fair so that they don't fail. And we'll hit the failed ones a little bit at a time. Excuse me. So that may be a methodology that would be more appropriate for theirs. And I just think kind of a one-size-fits-all approach may not be the best way to talk about doing this. So these are the things that we are going to be talking about right away. This is kind of our focus. But there's also other things that in Mr. Huckleberry's memo, he said that, down the road, we should be looking at making recommendations toward the Department of Transportation budget, making recommendations in terms of how to utilize the HERF funds and transportation policy and things like that. So right now, we're focusing on these. But that doesn't mean that down the road, we won't be able to make recommendations on other things. So just keep that in mind when you think about road monies and how much is going and how much is available, that this is just a small portion of it. And the HERF funds and the other funds all come into it, so that's something to keep in mind. Yeah.
I think in all fairness, if you're going to look at different districts and the conditions of the roads, you have to look at, are their roads better because they've done a better job managing their money?
Well, I would say district-wise in the unincorporated county, because we get these, I would say all of them suck. Okay? There is no district that I think has, I love this map because it shows how pathetic things are.
And Chris, I can help with that a little bit.
Sure.
Proportionally, they've been, work has been assigned per district proportionally according to, in my history is in lane miles, or road miles. So that if District 1 has 25% of the road miles, they get approximately 25% of the money. If District 2 has 6% of the road miles, they'll get between 6 and 10% of the funding. So it's relatively proportional to road miles, not necessarily if it's assessed value like this has, but I've always looked at it as road miles when I assign that. Whenever they ask me to put together the program, I say, here's what meets the criteria, and here's the top candidates per district, up to you hit your dollar amount.
Is that all the public roads, or is it just the arterial roads?
That's all.
All.
Depends, the criteria changes. Sometimes it's local roads, sometimes it's major roads.
But that doesn't speak to what they've done with the money they've gotten. That was the
We're getting there, okay, hold on, we're getting there, I promise. So, when I looked at this, okay, and I went through on our first meeting, and I saw how many orange, red, and yellow roads, okay? And then I saw how much money there wasn't, okay? If you told me that the money that's for unincorporated was just for District 1, I would still be, okay, we've got a lot of work to do. But we gotta share it amongst 5 districts, because I assume they're, you know, some of them have a little more incorporated area in them, like, you know, more City of Tucson or things like that. But there's a lot of this going on, okay? So when we make that decision, so at the meeting the last time, I brought up the discussion of how are we gonna split the money up? Because my thing is that District 1, all the districts, I think they should get a percentage of their money, and then the committee members, the supervisor, the municipalities, and the neighborhood, we try to figure out what roads. But when I brought that up, because I brought up a couple things about assessed value, because District 1 pays the most, okay? So thank God there's a board here with a red marker, okay? So I was taking notes during Reggie's presentation. See, the red's really stubby. Everyone likes the red, okay? So we said lane miles. That's a horrible. All right, let's try this again. Carmine, we need to increase the marker budget for the libraries, buddy. Okay? All right, so lane miles. District 1 was 35.8%. Reggie, am I okay on that so far?
So far.
You guys are good on that number? Thank you. Then we have assessed value, right? In relation to what percentage of the taxes are we paying in this county? A value? 36.8%. You're really close. And then 3, I had, what percentage of roads are poor and failed in the entire county?
100%.
Well, thank you very much, but our district is 43%. Okay? So, if I originally said, well, how about we do it on assessed value? Okay? And that was, we couldn't even get that conversation going. Then I said, what if we get a floor of 20%? Because Chris does math in 5 districts into, that's 20%. I couldn't get that discussion going. So other members of the committee were saying, but it just matters on what the need of the community is, okay? Which is nice speak for, we may be robbing District 1. Okay? So think about this. Lane miles is 35.8, assessed value is 36.8%, and failed and poor roads are 43%. If we get anything close to this, miracle. Barney.
I'd just like to point out, 5 districts in the county, the numbers, if everything was split equally, would be 20%. So District 1 is putting almost twice their proportional share of all the other districts into the pot. And yet they have more than twice their proportional share of their roads.
Yeah. So this is a big discussion as we start talking through this process, okay? It's awesome that you guys are here. This crowd is triple than what we had the first meeting. So thank you for giving a crap about, I'm sure you're sick of this road. I mean, this poor lady's got her pipes coming out of the road like poltergeist or something, okay? All right? But it's the idea that this is important, but now you actually have to go hit the other supervisors with your concerns. And you have to come to the Transportation Advisory meeting.
Why don't they just fix the bad roads first and work their way up?
Well, there's no money to do that. There's no money, okay? So we're literally, if we get what he maybe was considered a fair share, right? That number, the 2 point whatever you had up there, it's 11 miles. All right?
And how many miles do we have in District 1?
Well, how many are poor and failed before again? So there's 430 miles of failed and poor roads in District 1. And you're getting 11, there's 11.
We're paying the highest percentage.
Yes, sir. Welcome to Pima County.
That isn't fair.
It's true.
I mean, they should fix our road first before it's given away to the other ones, even if it's a better.
So, part of what you need to do, so we're all trained because you have your representative, right? And you got to make your concerns and your complaints to your elected representative, which is Ally Miller, okay? Well, the problem is, she's in the minority of most votes at the Board of Supers. So, 3 other supervisors control Pima County. Your complaints need to go to them. Because we're going to make recommendations, okay? But in the end, the Board of Supers, those 3 votes, they're going to determine what really happens to this. Okay, so don't worry about, they're going to keep telling you to send in emails and register your road. That's good, you should do that. Okay? You can, these nice people here brought me pictures of their community, right? And it looks like the surface of the moon over there by Sabino Canyon. Okay? And that's good, you should all do that. But I'm telling you, if you really want to do anything, you need to pepper Sharon Bronson, Richard Elias, and Ramon Valadez that you're pissed off about your roads and you want fair treatment, and you saw the numbers. Remind them of those numbers. Now, I don't know if it's going to do anything, but damn it, you should give it a try. And you should come to these meetings, these transportation meetings. Joanne, do you have those meetings, the list of those meetings coming up anywhere?
Actually, it's on the front cover.
Oh, okay, so it's already on your sheet. So if you can make one of those, wait for us to jibber jabber for, come an hour late or so, and then come to the call of the audience.
These are yours, not the ones you're talking about. These are yours.
Not town halls, you want to go to the actual Transportation Advisory Committee?
Those are on the website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If
Okay, you really need, you guys should start coming to those and start doing your call to the audience and saying, District 1, we want our fair share. We've been paying more than our fair share for years.
Are other districts having these meetings? Because I sure haven't heard about it.
We're early out of the gate.
So we've gotten a list of dates for Supervisory District 4. So they're going to be hosting a series of meetings spread out around that District 4 meetings, one in Green Valley, one in Tankerverde, one in Vail, one other location.
Okay, so you want 2, 3, and 5. Don't waste your time telling Steve Christie he gets it. So,
Let me clarify on the meetings so that you get this. There are actually 2 sets of meetings that we're talking about. One are these meetings like what we're having today. So they'll be held, I believe each district is going to hold 4 meetings. You're not prevented from going to any other meetings, and that's exactly what Carmine was talking about, like the next one's in District 4. That's this type of transportation hearing meeting. The other meetings that Chris and Reggie attend are the Transportation Advisory Committee meetings, which are comprised of each district's 2 members, as well as the county administrators, 3 members. We're going to say those are the honchos, okay, doing the recommendations that will come forward. That's a different type of meeting. All of these, though, will be posted as soon as we get schedules. I linked them up on Ally Miller's website, allymillerdistrict1.com. Go there and you can always click on road pavement updates. I keep everything updated in there.
So
the books, all the handout, everything is in there. All the meeting dates are up there.
So you need to let the recommenders, that's the committee we're on, know that you want your fair share. And then you need to let Ms. Bronson, Mr. Valadez, and Mr. Elias know directly, because they could just change whatever the recommendation. We're just a recommending board in the end.
So the next meeting of the Transportation Advisory Committee is September 12th, and that's from noon until 4 at the Abrams Building on Aho.
It's just east of the ballpark in Pima Hospital.
So September 12th from noon until 4.
And also Board of Supervisors meeting.
And you should go to Board of Supervisors meetings. You
But
are
I would
correct.
really encourage everyone to let all the supervisors know what your feelings are in terms of the apportionment, how much the funds are going to be divided, also the control as to whether or not we should be saying in District 1, we want to decide how we are going to spend our money. We want to decide which areas of roads are going to get done. Do this among our district.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
just confused because I called Ally Miller's office and they said that we would be the ones that taking the recommendations for our district.
Right.
So that we should come prepared to give, that you are the ones with the control, basically providing the input for us.
We are.
If you can't get to the meetings, that's what you want to do. It doesn't hurt for you to put your recommendations in, you can either put them in through Ally Miller's office, you can give them to the representatives, you can do it online through the county's transportation, there's a little quick submit in there. There are a multitude of ways that you can get your message across. What I believe Chris and Reggie are talking about is, one, getting your input in, at the same time making your voice being heard to the supervisors about how you feel about the distribution of funding, the methodology. So it's two different things.
You need to do all of it. This has to be a full court press by District 1 residents. You have to, I want to have, at one of these transportation advisory committee, I want 15 to 20 people from District 1 to take their 2-3 minutes and say, we want our fair shake at the money. I want maybe Murphy Woodhouse to trip over himself and report that in the paper that District 1 is pissed off. And 15 or 20 people showed up and said, you know something, we don't want to get screwed on the roads. Hey, they rely on your silence. They rely, you know, because you guys have lives. Raise kids, you know, go to work, make some money. That's what they do. I mean, that's why the meetings are at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. You know, so retired people and activists can show up. I mean, this is not a hard thing. Let's go with you first, and I'll get to you, I promise.
I just wanted to say I posted it on Next Door Neighbors. I don't know if everybody uses that app. I had a lot of comments back on that. And I came as a realtor because I drive these roads and I have people that specifically will not buy. They said my children can't ride bicycles. They are not going to play on these roads and they go elsewhere and it's really affecting home prices. So, you know, you've got to fight for your home values, not just your roads. It's a real big fit.
Yes, ma'am.
Sharon with Paracanta.
Where is that? Just tell everyone where exactly it is.
Old Father and the Deed.
Oh, gosh.
Not
Yeah,
telling you.
yeah.
So anyhow, I'd like to know what else I need to do. I went and did a petition throughout our community, got over 100 signatures, pictures. I've got a flash drive that I'd like to give you tonight, or whoever.
Sure, give it.
What else can I do? I mean, really, it sounds like a smoke and mirror show.
Well, here's the ultimate. This problem does not happen overnight, right? It happens over 20 years. Okay. It's about who sits in elected seats and who they hire to be the county administrator. All right, Chuck's been there for 20 years or more. He was the head of transportation before that. If there's a guy whose baby it is, your crappy road, it's the county administrator.
Yes, and another
Okay?
thing.
So it's bad decisions, mismanagement, okay? And so in the end, so what do you have to do in addition to what I just said? Well, you have to change the vote board of supervisors. So in 2020, they're all up one more time, okay? And so, well, go find a district, whoever runs against one of these people, stroke them a check. Go knock on the door for them. That's where you're at. Sharon Bronson's been there for over 20 years. This is her baby too. So when your pipe,
1996.
you're 19. Oh, you did.
Yeah,
Okay. So since your pipe's coming out of your ground, that's a Sharon and Chuck baby they got right there. It's their decisions, their votes. This is where you're at.
So Chris, if I
Hold on, Carmen. I promise I'll get to it. No, you go. You're the resident. He's the employee.
Nobody runs against them on the ballot, they get it, whether you vote for them or not, you know.
I'm just saying, you have to be uber active to make change in the county. Because it's been stagnating like this for 20 years. I'm going to get to you, Carmen, I promise. Next lady.
What about people like me? I'm handicapped.
Oh, so what about?
I'm handicapped.
Yep.
I use a scooter to get to the pool because of my
Yep.
community.
Yep.
I fell in a hole and
off the river. Okay, I gotta wait 20 years before I can.
I'm gonna wait
be
20
safe.
years, I mean,
It's
hopefully.
a safety issue. There's no.
Maybe the county will hit the Powerball and fix.
I mean, seriously, on all of our hydrants, they're supposed to be reflective. It's a safety issue.
So I assume that there's a giant pothole, Dave and the crew can get out there, or at least fill it with something.
No, not one pothole.
On Cyber Kansas, you're
I've
driving
called
like
Conrad, I've called Lori, I've called them all, every day. They know me by name. They do.
Is there any, can you buy a hovercraft and float over it or something like that? I mean, that's where we're at.
You shouldn't have to.
Hey, guys.
So the county can start taking our claims then, our medical claims from when we fall in the
That doesn't work
hospital?
either, I've tried it. I've already put in a claim for my car, and they fixed it the next day, and then said, oh, we're not gonna pay you. Been there.
I think this is a great discussion, but I kind of looked at the road.
It's depressing, actually.
Yes, it is depressing. Looked at the road list, and the neighborhood I live in, the roads are not even listed. I mean, the roads are listed, but there's no rating. How do you get them rated? Because they're poor.
David?
For any questions like that, fill out the form in the back. And chances are what's happened is,
This form?
Yeah, that form,
Okay.
because we'll answer all those. And what'll happen is, there's about 60 miles that are not rated. And some of those are because maybe the people driving the van that rate them didn't realize it was a county road. That's happened. Or it could be a stub of a road that's really not rated, it's just part of that, it's part of the other one. We found one in Ajo where the main road through the subdivision was rated, but the others were not. When you have a road like that, you still have no worries because that road will still show up as a subdivision road. We'll still get the consideration that will work out.
Right.
But if we do find one that's not rated, we will absolutely do it.
Okay, because there's a few of us from our neighborhood that Golden Heritage in here today.
Right.
And actually, Golden Heritage, you'll find out, was just input yesterday.
It was,
Yeah,
because
it's
there's
in there
nothing
now.
listed there.
It's in our data now.
Okay.
'Cause I know Golden Heritage.
Kurt?
So I would like to ask about financial accountability. And the wrinkle to this is my awareness. I work for the Town of Marana Engineering Department, and the county is going to administrate the pavement preservation work that occurs within the town. The town will manage that themselves. The county is going to manage that. My understanding is that the county, let's say $1 million goes to Marana, the county is going to take 20% right off the top of that for administrative costs.
They're ready to answer you, Kurt.
Okay, that, in my opinion, that's an exorbitant amount. You know, there's some rules of thumb relative to the size of a project that would dictate what sort of a percentage should be attributable to administrative costs.
All right, Dave.
I'm worried that in the county where I live, unincorporated county, we're gonna see numbers played with, you know, to take that same sort of 20% off the top to help fund the function of Pima County DOT. And so I would like to know what sort of financial accountability the advisory committee will be doing, what sort of function it will be doing to make sure that the money that's allotted is really for road work and not for...
Well, when you threw the 20% numbers out, the boys were getting a little wild. So what?
Yeah, the way it works is there are administrative fees for the bonding and for the administration. The individual municipalities, such as Marana, can administrate it all themselves if they wish.
No, they can't.
Yeah, they can.
I don't think that's
Town of
true.
Laurel Valley's already tried it, and they
No, I can tell you, they have the option of administrating it. The only thing the county does is they require a quality assurance for materials above that. Okay, so Marana can administrate it any way they wish, through their own process, because they do it all the time. The only thing the county adds to that is the administrative cost of the materials quality assurance testing, which is a fraction of the material sampling that Marana was doing. The agencies have the right to do that. They can choose not to, in which case the county will administer it. And there are set fees for that, but it's nowhere near 20%.
Or is it roughly around?
Well, if it's full service, I think it's about 4.5%.
At the maximum.
And then if it's less, depending, if it's probably about 0.5%. If all we do is a quality assurance testing, if we do inspection, administration, and testing, it goes up to 4.5%.
So the county is gonna put out the county is gonna put out the bids and will administer the contracts. So the jurisdictions, and we met with them just this afternoon, and we asked them for their input, what pieces of the inspection and the testing and the quality assurance are you gonna perform, and then which of those do you need the county to perform? So the folks from Marana were there, Ryan Benavides, your Public Works Director is there. Those discussions are taking place in the county. None of the staff costs are going to be covered out of the property tax revenue. So that's all gonna go into the work that gets done on roadways.
Promise?
Yeah, well, and to the point, right, so what we're doing is we're working to set up a website so that you've got a map that will give you a view so you can see the roadways that have been selected, what the treatment type is that's going to be applied to it, what the cost is, what the start date is, what the anticipated end date is, and then the status of that. So there will be transparency. The Pima County Finance Department is going to audit this, and reports will be provided out to the Board of Supervisors and to the Transportation Advisory Committee. So it's expected to be done in a transparent fashion and have auditing and reporting that goes along with it.
Hold on, well, Carmine, while you're up, there was something else I said earlier that triggered you. You said you wanted to say something. What was that? Do you remember? While you're up there.
Gosh, I don't remember that.
That's all right. You know what I meant.
Something else.
Okay, I'm gonna get to her and then to you, I promise. Yes.
I think the county should start to consider that a lot of residents will be ready to move out of the county because of the roads, and you will lose your tax revenue. As more people move because our property is being destroyed, while you're left taking care of the roads, with our money.
And I just recall the yeah. No, I just recall the point, and I understand, right, I've been to two of the Transportation Advisory Committee meetings. I've been now, this is my second District 1 open house. I'm going to attend all of these, and when I've interacted with people, I hear the frustration. I understand the upset, and what I've heard from people is it's a lack of prioritization. So Mr. DeSimone has stated that, and I've heard that from numerous nice people like yourselves. And the point that I was going to make earlier, Chris, is that over the past decades, the priority has been in constructing new roads and new road capacity. And that's where the emphasis has been, that's where the work has gone, that's where the revenue, the money has gone, is into constructing new roadways. So when we look at the roadway landscape of the county, we've got to look at it in the various categories. So new road construction, you've got arterial and collector roadway system, the big stuff that moves people between the subdivisions, and you have the locals. And admittedly, the locals have not received priority attention, and what we're hearing from you today, and has been consistent along these discussions, is that the local roads need to be given priority attention.
Now again, so when it came to, so he talks about new roads, but sometimes you need money to do, take care of us piddly residents' roads, right? Okay. Well, there's other things that they've spent money on that has nothing to do with the transportation department, right? Then you look at priorities. Okay.
That's what I'm saying, you spend 20%, you say you're going to spend on these roads, but you're not showing what road you fixed.
Well, they are, okay, it's the idea, they don't have enough money, they don't have enough money to fund a 5-year road plan like the municipalities, okay? And they'll tell you they got all these other things to do, and I got that, but they also take in a lot more money. So when we had Marana in our last committee, and they basically have a 5-year preservation plan. So your road gets touched in a positive way every 5 years.
Or a valley.
Or a valley, I apologize, it was Oral Valley. I'm sure Marana does the same thing. But, so what happened was a lady at the District 1 meeting last week, she comes up to me, she goes, I haven't touched my road in 30 years. You mean someone in Oral Valley is getting their road touched 6 times and I haven't got one? And that's where it's at. But it's about governance, who's sitting in the seats and what's the decision making. This is not a hard one. I'm gonna get to her. Oh, I got her, and then you, I promise.
Okay. I have a question about escalating. I have a question about escalating costs. In 2013, my neighborhood, which has 1 1/3 miles of pavement that needs to be fixed, was scheduled. Of course, it did not happen, but we were scheduled to be paved, and the cost estimate was $190,000. Now, I'm looking at this 211,000 per mile would put the cost of my road up to
Not necessarily.
280,000 miles.
You have to remember that-
$90,000 more?
But what you have to take a look at things in perspective. For example, these estimates are based on a 30-foot wide road, which is an average in Pima County. Your roads are probably 22 or 24 feet.
Okay.
Okay, so you have to take a look at, everything looks at specifically. Okay, this is an average. So on average, it's gonna cost that much per mile. If your roads are narrower, it's gonna cost less, that kind of thing. And as far as the cost escalations, things are as cheap right now as they have been in years.
So it hasn't gone.
No, it's actually,
30%
we have great contractors, we have great competitive prices. That's not to say that once we hit the road with a ton of this work, once the demand goes up, the prices are gonna go up. So you have to factor that a little bit too. So I'm not saying these are set in stone, but in general, the work we're bidding right now has been as cheap as it's been in years.
So we're bargaining and we volunteer.
Wow. So these folks are the ones that have the roads that look like Father Keno's trails up in by Sabino Canyon, and they were scheduled. That was 2 years ago. They were twice they've been scheduled, but the last one was the one where the 4 supervisors voted 4-1 to move the money over into Ray Carroll's district. Remember that? So these guys had the whole thing. Hey, we're gonna get it done finally. This poor woman can push her mother in a wheelchair down the street, and they got screwed by those 3 other votes plus Ray, but he's not here anymore. I really did mess with him. Now I have you, and then you. Yes, sir.
I have a question and a statement. I'll do
Okay.
the statement first. We live right off of Portera Farms Road,
Right.
2 entrances into our complex. All the time they were doing the construction and widening of Portera Farms Road,
Right.
where do you think they turned around those big heavy equipment?
I would have to say your neighborhood.
Between those 2 entrances, supposedly, from DOT, they weren't doing that. They broke down that road so bad between those 2 entrances, it's almost impossible to walk. She fell.
Did you report that to anybody?
I don't know.
I have a picture of when she fell.
Yeah,
Did you report that to anybody? Who did you report it to? Who did you report? I'm asking you, who?
Oh, I called the ADOT guy, and he was there, and I showed him the picture, and
And what did ADOT tell you?
he took it down, and he put my complaint down. What he did with it, I have no idea.
It's slated for this fall.
What he did with it, I don't know. But that was when you had all the flooding.
What was that street?
Moon's Way.
All right.
There's
So-
slightly special monies for Terra Farms Road for next fall. They've got a bond, and they're gonna lose the bond if they don't do it. But it's right, I got it
So
off.
ADOT said they're gonna come fix it? They're gonna fix it?
That's Terra Farms.
Well, not the Carroll Farms, but.
This is Pima County Department of Transportation. It's not.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no,
I know where you're at. Okay. Well, complain to him.
So Cortera Farms, right, so the county has a bond program, 1997 HERF bond program, over $300 million, $250 million of that program has been completed, and if we look at percentages, and that's not a number that's represented up there, but in District 1, 62% of that $250 million has landed in District 1. So when we talk about the roadway program, that's what I was trying to emphasize in my comments earlier, that we've got new road capacity, we've got arterial and collector maintenance, right, preservation and repair, and we've got local roads. So the project that you're talking about is bond funds that have been programmed to do work on Cortero, and that work is progressing to the point of being started.
while INA is being shut down.
Yeah.
One
Oh,
question
yeah.
is why when this was the 97 bonds, why has it taken almost 20 years for them actually to start to work on it?
It was a 20-year program.
Pardon?
It wasn't a bond, wasn't.
He's only like a
It's
So that was actually,
It's
the work
intended
was
to be-
actually
Yeah.
scheduled to begin in 2017?
It's a 20-year program, I mean, those, that money would be expended over.
I understand that, but that's not the question. The question was, why haven't they
Hold on,
waited so
everybody.
long to start on short-term bonds?
Well, other work was being done. I think as was indicated, it was a 20-year program. It was massive in its size, and that work has been done over the period of the last
I'm
decade.
just curious because I know I went to a meeting in 2005 or 4 when they showed us the diagram of how it was supposed to get started. And now it's 10 years.
A lot of those funds Huckleberry has put other places.
So before I get to more questions, if I buy Carmine's argument that they've done so much on new road capacity, I'm going to say, so what we've learned is Chuck Huckleberry does not know how to do new roads and fix old roads at the same time. Thank you. All right, now, let's get to this young man. I got you. Well, everyone's been waiting. Do you have any fans who got their hands up? Did I promise you?
Yes.
All right. Hold on, let me go to her first.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, the road I'm talking about, I'm sure many of you people ride up and down on it. I ride up and down it many, many times. It is bumper to bumper from about 3 o'clock on. It starts at Quintero Farm Road and it ends at Linda Vista. It's good old Thornydale. Thornydale, I have lived up there for 27, 30 years. It has never been redone. Now, they say pygmy owls. Well, the pygmy owls, they built this nice thing with trees and everything, but that is south of that area.
Well, again, this is only local roads that this thing even covers.
So we don't care about Thornydale.
No, but Thornydale is being evaluated, so.
Because particularly they closed Ina Road, okay, you can't get back over the Ina Road, you can't get on the freeway. You can't hardly get on Quintero Road because Quintero is bad and there's 20,000 stoplights and train. So then everybody goes down Twin Peaks and they go down Thornydale and they cut up
Thornydale's a thorn in everyone's side.
and it's just unreal.
Hey, Carmine, the money that they moved 2 years ago in the Raise District on that vote, was Thornydale on that?
Yes, I believe that was.
Yes,
I want Carmine.
yes.
I don't know, I'll look it up. for you.
Please look it up.
Actually, it was, that can be verified, that is absolutely correct.
Hold on.
I remember that very clearly. There were recommendations made. That were rejected by District 1. They asked for different things submitted, which included new neighborhoods. That money was then swept later on after that.
Well, that didn't give a justification for sweeping the money, that's
I'm not
what they're
saying
talking
that,
about.
I'm just saying that.
So Thornydale is not on that plan?
I don't know, I have to look.
Please look.
I do have
I
it.
appreciate that. All right, hold on. Let's get to this young man, then I'll get to you.
Do you have a slide up there showing her funds and use of the last 10 to 20 years?
So here's a whole other can of worms.
This mismanagement of her funds for the last 20 years, one could almost make a RICO case.
Come on, guys. If you want to talk and have a coffee clutch outside.
You know,
go
there
for
is the thing that we have to take into consideration. These bonds are over 20 years. A lot of these people haven't lived here that long. Also, the cost of petroleum varies.
That's it, actually, I took that large chart and consolidated it into one line so you could see the effect.
Okay, so this is from the state that Chuck keeps saying they're just, and it has been reduced, but when they say swept, they always make it sound like they took all of it. That's what I love. That's the misconception when they say the word swept. Okay. So basically, for the last from 6 to 16, we've received $770 million worth of state HERF and DLT funds.
How about that with the roads?
Yeah, but it's supposed to be used for roads. It hasn't been used for roads.
Carmine,
There's
give them the brochure.
There's two components. You've got highway user revenue funds, which are for transportation purposes. You have vehicle license tax funds, a portion of which are devoted to transportation purposes. You have another allocation of vehicle license tax that goes to the general fund. And that's where Chris is representing that it's the combined total of HERF, the VLT, vehicle license tax transportation portion, as well as the vehicle license tax general fund portion that totals this amount. And that's where there is a difference in opinion in terms of the total amount of revenues available for roads. So the highway user revenue funds are for roadway purposes. There's no question about that. The vehicle license tax portion dedicated to transportation is for transportation purposes, and those are allocated to transportation activities. So for fiscal year 17, $45 million in HERF revenue, and then another $13 million in vehicle license tax. What is being also added to that is the vehicle license tax portion that is for general fund purposes of counties.
How
So
much
that's
is that?
there's a difference.
What's your question, Mark?
How much is that? You gave us 43 and 13, what's this last component?
Was it 58 million?
Joanne?
What you have basically, and I'm going to pick up from Carmine's here, there is a difference of opinion, let's say, in how this is allocated. So for example, that VLT general fund, if you take all of these for a representative year, let's say this past year, you would get approximately 84 million if you took all three categories. Now let's take that VLT, that general fund category away. We'll reduce that down to approximately 64 million. So let's take that 64 million and then divvy it up, and I'm going to use the figures that Carmine gave us the other night at the first meeting. About 19 million is used for debt service. About 40 million is used to fund the Pima County Department of Transportation. Now we know that because the director stood up at the budget hearing meetings and said, my budget is 43 million. About 97% of that is funded from HERF VLT. You take 97% of 43 million. So I'm going to say hypothetically that's 40 million. We add in the 19 million on the debt. That left us about 6 million, and that was more or less in sync with what Carmine said. So that's what you're looking at for a road.
So Barney, to answer the question, Barney, so for fiscal year 17 that ended in June of 17, the general fund VLT was 27 million. So 45 million is HERF revenue. VLT for transportation is 13 million, and then 27 million is the vehicle license tax for general fund purposes. And so what Joanne had indicated is that 19 million of the combined highway user revenue fund and the vehicle license tax for transportation purposes went to debt service.
Interest.
Went to debt, right, debt service payments. So on the highway user revenue fund 1997 bond program, we took out debt and we built roads, and we're repaying that at currently $19 million a year. So the $41 million in operations that Joanne's referring to for the Department of Transportation are for transportation activities. So part of that $15 million, almost $60 million goes into general roadway maintenance. So it's not preservation and repair, but it's filling of potholes, right? And it's grading of roadways and grading of shoulders.
It's also a difference of, excuse me, but for example, like in Marana, I believe Marana does 100% of their distribution.
Kurt, what's the number?
Or is it close? What is it?
My understanding is Marana gets about $3 million in HERF funds every year. 3 million, did I say 3 million?
Yeah.
They devote 800,000 of that to pavement preservation and other monies to other roadway type of maintenance. And then they kick in from the general fund another I think about 600,000 to put about 1.4 million into pavement preservation.
Yes. The difference that you're looking at here, and this is something that I believe it's the essence of what you're talking about, is that you've got to look at it and say, are we going to cover departmental staff, wages, ERE, et cetera, all of those expenses out of, let's say, that 40 million? And that's, you know, for example, like Carmine was talking about, out of that 40 million, he said 15 to 16 million was for road?
60 million is on the annual general maintenance.
1/6.
16,
16,
right,
yeah.
roughly.
So when you take 16 away from the 40, and what you're really looking at is, how are you funding your Department of Transportation? That's what it, are you going to use your HERP BLT to fund your Department of Transportation, or are you going to bring some of that into general fund? And then when you do that, you release that HERP BLT money to be utilized for your roads. That's the discussion, and I believe that's what Chris refers to in priorities. That's accountability.
It's like an Italian restaurant. I got a Carmine, a Di Simone, and a Di Filippo.
So, I did arrive a few minutes late, but from what I've heard, the gist of what I've heard you say is, unless we're willing to wait or do all kinds of proactive things that you can't even guarantee are gonna work, okay? If we can crawl up to these main things like Thornydale and Patero, where all the money has been spent rather than in our neighborhoods, we'll be fine. But neighborhoods, we can just pretty much kiss off.
Pretty much.
Open up and say, man.
You have to pick a voice.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any way that, like, if you have an HOA, that you can buy your street from Pima County?
Yeah, can we participate?
So this question came up again. It's these, basically, it's the community improvement districts. All right, and so basically, it's the idea is you assess yourself.
Correct.
Money to fix the road. So you pay your taxes like a regular Pima County sheet, and then you pay extra to fix the road. Just you can do that. So they talked to you about that, Carmine.
Yeah, so you can talk to me about it. It's it's done out of our finance department, but if anybody's interested in formation of an improvement district, you can talk to me, you can talk to Dave, we can get you in contact.
Now this side of the place is the middle. Let's go to this side real quick. Okay, yeah, that's right.
I have a question about the BLT. The portion of it that goes to general fund, is that unrestricted? Or is it restricted, they have to go through the general fund and it could be used for transportation?
It's for general purposes, so it can be used for any
It
purpose.
actually, in theory, it could just go back into transportation.
It could. There's nothing that restricts it
But it's being
from going
somewhere,
back
it's
into
being spent
transportation.
somewhere.
That's correct.
Carl.
I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but this is District 1, okay? Ina is shut down, and you're going to be putting a lot of money and a lot of work into Cortero Farms, which is already a disaster as far as traffic goes through the day. How was that decision made? Was it deliberately done to piss off District 1?
I don't know about that. So, as I said, my thing was is that especially after the road money was stolen from District 1 2 years ago, right? When I brought up the idea of fair and equitable of this, I had to tell these guys and gals that in District 1 we're a little sensitive about getting abused by the other districts, and that's where I'm at with it.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
So, I guess just to respond to that, no, it wasn't done to piss off the residents of District 1. And in terms of the $800,000 that was allocated to Colossal Cave Road, as David indicated, there was a program of road maintenance that was presented. And there was a request to change the roads that were on there.
Ray had that so set up. Cal Baker told me he didn't even know he was showing up until a meeting until the day before. Stop. Okay. Stop, Carmine, don't give me the chuck line on this one, please.
But what about the traffic on Cortero Farms? Because we're heard of.
Came up out of nowhere.
And didn't it take 3 years?
That was a hit back on that one. All right, where else do we got? Yes, young lady.
I'm right over.
Everyone, please be quiet.
I'm right over on Casa Stories.
Yep.
And I know that you're moving the Oro Valley Annex as it's been coming along. One of the questions that my neighbors asked me to ask is, we were opposed, we don't want to be annexed into Oro Valley.
Sure.
People are now saying, can we please be annexed into Oro Valley?
Sure.
Because their taxes are not that much different than ours. Mine have gone up 4.9, 4.8, and 4.9 in the last 3 years. That's
Right.
15% in the last 3 years. I'll sell my house, I'll move to Oro Valley.
Right.
Or annex me in, baby.
You can't sell it.
Well, some people like living in unincorporated.
Well, I like where I'm living.
There was a lady, Patty yelled at me at the last one, she's like, I want to live in unincorporated. And I said, enjoy driving through the divots, you know, through your trench.
That's fine.
You
But
know,
there
I wish it
were
was a
paving
divot,
roads in
trench.
Oro Valley that were just repaved 2 years ago and look beautiful. So, I mean, can they annex it in and pave our roads? I mean,
Well, we had this
I think I need to
annexation.
explain something about Oro Valley that we all need to understand. There's a lot of subdivisions in Oro Valley that are privately owned.
I understand that, I'm a realtor.
Okay.
I know. Yep, I got that.
So a lot of people, you go and visit your friends in Oro Valley, those roads, they pay $200 or $300 a month to have those roads. They own them.
Very, but it's
But
not
not all
anywhere near the
majority.
majority. I mean, I drive those roads every day.
Okay,
A
I
handful
totally
at the
agree.
farm, a handful.
There's a few of the gated, like
The
probably
gated
the villages
communities,
that are like
I'll give
that.
you. The gated
But not
communities.
everyone's paying $200 or $300 a month for Oro Valley.
Stone Canyon, baby.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think the bottom line is there's a lot of logistics and details
Excuse us, guys.
as to what, you know, what's involved. But the bottom line is that we came here as Moondance community because we spoke to Annabelle at the Department of Transportation. She said that there was some funding available with this new tax, but that it's very competitive. And there's going to be a lot of communities competing with us to get our roads fixed. So that's why I can tell you that's why we're here. And she said that we're going to be giving feedback to you. So I'd like to know what feedback are you two going to be taking back from Moondance for us, for this?
So basically what happens is that we're going to have a list of all, and you know, Lynn's just showing it, in relation to the input of what streets and the people who live in those neighborhoods have shown up to meetings, whether it's this one or the advisory committee, saying, hey, these, or gone online to say, hey, we demand attention. Okay? And
So
now,
basically, she said to bring pictures of potholes, and so it's just a matter of, we've been giving attention to our community for the past 10 years. So we'd like to be met with some action at this point, beyond just, it's a waste of our time if we're just going to be giving you more attention and more attention on our part.
so again, again, there's a great chance that you're not going to get your road done.
That's right.
Okay, that's just the
I understand,
the
but
hardcore of the money.
they
So
should at
so if we
least-
had our druthers, we'd get our fair share of the money, okay? And we would have District
Yeah, I
1.
understand, but Ms. Miller's office and the Department of Transportation should be fair and say, you know, and how they're presenting this new availability to us for our roads. And if we don't really have a chance, they should just go ahead and say, you don't have much of a chance. But what feedback you're just going to be giving us that we were here at the meeting, that's the only feedback.
What else would you
you're
like me to do for you?
I don't know, that's up to you. Why are
So-
you having this meeting?
So, well, because we're getting the input from people from their different roads, okay? One, we're trying to, it's also like, it's like a cathartic group complaint thing we're doing here, really.
That's not what you're doing.
Okay? But in the end, so you want to talk about your road. So again, let me finish my answer, okay? Reggie and I would love the idea that our district gets our fair share of the money. Nice lady? Hey, nice lady. Okay? We would like to get our fair share of the road in District 1, of the money. Okay? If we had our druthers, we'd like to work with the people of the different communities that have all of these needs, right? And the people that live there, and make our recommendations. And it's going to be if we have to make that decision, it's horrible. Because literally, you could have 38 different projects that are all worthy, and we have to pick 3. I don't know what the number is going to be. This is a horrible job. Now, if we don't get our druthers, what's going to happen is everyone from the other districts are going to make decisions that more money of the money goes into theirs, and then you have even less of a shot to get your roads done. So all I can tell you is we're going to take all the requested projects that people want to get done to these meetings, and when it gets to the point in time where we have to make hard decisions of what roads are worthy, we will. And then we also, because the other part that we kind of talked about is we have to figure out, is it a combination of this, okay? Are we going to just maintain fair roads? Are we going to take the ones that are the Father Kino Trail and rebuild them? And then find out how much real stuff we can get done.
But it seems like a waste of our time, because we can just send in a petition and accomplish the same thing.
Well, again,
It isn't a waste of time.
it's never a waste of time.
Because
I understand,
You
but
know-
that's my feeling that it is. If there's nothing gonna be accomplished.
There's a little truth in what you're saying.
I have to get that money, so, and when you're speaking to Annabelle, I just want you to know that you're speaking to the Department of Transportation, not Supervisor Miller's office.
I also spoke with Supervisor
We
Miller's office.
have a long file on Moondance, and we work closely, but we don't have the money, we don't have the capacity to make the decisions on the roads.
Then why the meeting, to tell us there's no money?
No, it's to explain the process to you about why and how your taxes are going up,
That's
and
not
what
how-
we need to do.
That's not how I understood it.
What
when
we
I
need
called
to
the
do
office.
in order to get the money allocated to District 1, so you can look at getting some of your roads.
I understood that there was some money available and that is going to be decided upon, and that's why I'm here.
There will be money from the property tax.
Hey, if I had my druthers, the Arizona Daily Star would, on the headline would say, there's a little bit of road money for lots of pain, and everyone would get the message that you're gonna be disappointed by this process right now. Sorry.
Well, that's not really good enough.
None of it's good. This is one of the most mismanaged counties in America. This is where we're at. Look at the soccer fields. They look like heck. There's a lot of things broken in this county, sad to say. Let's take a couple more questions because the cathartic part's starting to, I think, we're- Again, sooner or later you'll hit your bottom and say, should I go do something?
I would like to say something about what you're saying. We have been, I'm from Moondance also, and we've been fighting for 6 years.
Where is Moondance? So I know exactly.
Right off Cortero between Thorndale and Shannon.
There it is.
But David and the Department of Transportation met with us about 4 years ago. And at the time, I asked a question that a lot of people here are asking, how did we get here? And why isn't it a priority? And his comment, and I think it's perfectly valid, was because there's not any pressure from the public. And I, at that time, sent letters to about 400 HOAs saying, I think, rather than one HOA, why don't we get together and form a group? And I did not get an answer from a single one of them.
So think about it. So we just had at the board, they're really tackling some really important things that are really amazing, right? The Paris Accords, sexual conversion therapy, and the border wall. Okay? So if you go there, they got zillions of speakers. Zillions. I sat at a meeting for an hour and 10 minutes on the Paris Accords day. Most painful hour and 10 I've ever had sitting at a meeting. I would rather shove toothpicks underneath my fingernails. Okay? And I left and they were still going. But those are the things that get those are the people that are out there. Those who show up and talk, make the rules, as we like to say. Boy, the road thing, roads aren't sexy. Okay? But you gotta live with them every darn day. And it's sad to say, the voting public has been very silent about this over 20 years, and they've gotten to do what they gotta do. Two more questions, and we're all going to dinner.
What happens
Not on
if
me.
we withhold our property tax?
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'd be horrible consequences legally.
If you're, well, first of all, I want to address the woman in the back.
She's gone.
No, she's gone. Yeah, I wanted to.
Because you can't give us, I mean, we've made presentations, we've done the petitions, we've gone to the Board of Supervisors. I've been told by Chuck Huckleberry, get used to it. So that's the time, and we still cannot give up on it. And now I read in the Sunday paper, I know you're a soccer person, that they're gonna find 18 million so that families don't have to drive up to Phoenix. But that's another sham, but we can drive on these poor failed roads.
That was in a bond issue that went down hard.
I know, I understand.
But Chuck finds it, just like the courthouse.
So
We'll find some
why-
more money for that, but he can't fix your road. It's really amazing.
How much of our house taxes goes to Phoenix rather than stays here in Pima County? Well, when we pay taxes on our house,
Right.
that doesn't just go to Pima County, it goes, a lot of it goes up to Phoenix.
No.
The property tax.
You don't pay property tax in the state. You pay state income tax. Any other hardcore questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
We all pay taxes and it's based on the value of our house, correct?
Right.
And I probably will sell my house in the next few years, but I saw one online and somebody was trying to sell the house. And of
Can
course,
you guys let this guy
of
answer
course,
the question?
you know, there's a picture of the house and it shows the road in front of the house. That is just totally potholes and wrecked, okay? So somebody coming in, let's say a new Caterpillar employee that's going to be a high paid, looks at this picture and says, well, I don't want to live on a road like that, okay? So the house sells for $50,000 less because, and those $50,000 could have been tax dollars, okay, in the end. If we fix the roads, the house values go up, the county gets more money for taxes to keep this rolling. Has anybody ever even questioned that? Thought of that?
So, here, my last statement on that.
they don't do math
So the
that
last
way
jobs report just came out from the state, right, in the last month, right? They said in the Pima County area, 2,100 high-paying, like, professional jobs, the net, they just left, okay? So if I assign like a $75,000 a salary to those folks, it's like a $300 million buying power that just left Pima County. Okay? And I'm sure the way the place looks factored into that possibly.
So why don't they think about it?
All right, this lady who has the worst roads possibly ever gets the other last
A
word.
lot of the people that Tucson came here and retiring, we have.
Now the battery's down to 7%.
We have, you know, I have probably
Just spinning all wheels.
losing value because the county is destroying my property with their shit look. And I'm gonna leave. I can do that. And a lot of the people you're trying to attract here for revenue in the retirement community, you're going to attract taking care of the roads.
These people have a book of all their nice efforts they've tried. It's like a Bible of what they've done. And she got an answer from Chuck of get used to it. So it's either get used to it or move. That's where you're at. Everyone, thank you for an amazing run.